Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching Why You Do What You Do. This podcast is about psychology and human development. And last time we were talking about, an introduction to the human development field, explain a little bit about that, because that's contributes to who you are as a person. And today we're going to start with developmental processes, change, and stability because we're constantly developing and we're going to change. People feel like they are wrong when they change sometimes, but it's like, no, you're operating from what you knew at the time. Now you know something different, so you change and everything changes. Change is the only constant thing going on. And stability. Actually, it makes you a stable person to change because you're learning and growing and keeping your knowledge base, under you so that you can be a stable person. Excuse me. Developmental scientists are interested in two kinds of developmental change, quantitative and qualitative. And those are in a lot of sciences, quantitative, qualitative change, different measurements. So that's something you can think about that. And of course, I think we all know quantitative means how much, qualitative means the kind. So quantitative change is a change in number or amount, such as growth in height, weight, vocabulary, aggressive behavior, or frequency of communication. Because we all grow, hopefully there are some primordial dwarves who really don't grow a lot, and that's not a great outcome for them. So I pray for people like that. But usually we all grow, to the height that we're meant to be. We grow to the weight that we're meant to be, and we kind of have to watch on that one because as we get older, we don't burn as many calories, and we can keep weight on that we don't need. Your vocabulary should be growing as you age. Now, people with high intelligence and sometimes use telegraphic speech. I'm guilty of that myself a lot. I feel like I should only have to say a few things for you to get me rather than have to go into a big explanation. That causes me stress that it takes me so long to tell you something. and that's just my problem. It's not yours, it's my problem. Aggressive behavior. Again, you should not allow aggressive behavior from your child. That's something that needs to be nipped in the bud, or you're going to raise a, violent sociopath out there doing aggressive things he shouldn't be doing. Frequency of communication, how often, you're communicating. And that's a problem if you notice that they're not communicating. Qualitative change is a change in kind, structure, or organization. So, the quality in qualitative should change. You should get better at talking. You should get better at walking. You should be, getting better at reasoning things out as you grow. It is marked by the emergence of new phenomena that cannot easily be anticipated on the basis of earlier functioning, such as the change from an embryo to a baby, or from a nonverbal child to one who understands words and can communicate verbally. Because that's a big jump, It's kind of crazy when you think about it. You started out as this one little cell, an egg and a sperm got together and you're one little thing. And now, you're, whoever know, Google billions of cells doing their own thing, and they're specialized and they know how to grow and do their own thing. It's kind of amazing. And think about, a baby can't talk to us the way a grown-up person can talk to us. So, it's kind of amazing how we learn and grow. Developmental scientists also are interested in the underlying stability or constancy of personality and behavior. So there are some personality things that stay stable and constant, and behaviors that stay stable and constant. But everyone has their own little personality quirks or traits that make them them. So if there's something that bothers you, it might not be something that's a problem. It might just be that's the way they are. For example, about 10 to 15% of children are consistently shy. And I was kind of a shy kid because basically I was made to feel like I had nothing to add, and anything I did have to add was stupid. So, I just kind of kept to myself. And there are kids who are just naturally shy, that they just don't want to interact with people. And, it could be a form of they're on the spectrum of autism, or they could just, prefer to be by themselves. Everyone's different. And another 10 to 15% are very bold. We all know them outgoing kids that we went to school with, or that, we see. And you're like, man, and sometimes you can be too bold. There's a line there. Although various influences can modify these traits somewhat, they seem to persist to a moderate degree, especially in children at one extreme or the other. So if your child starts out as very shy, they're probably going to stay shy. They might come out of their shell a bit and blossom, but they're probably going to stay kind of shy. If your child is very bold, they're probably going to stay that way. They might calm down a bit as they get older, but they're probably going to stay basically in that vein of, the way they started out. Broad dimensions of personality, such as conscientiousness and openness to new experience, seem to stabilize before or during young adulthood. And conscientiousness is a very good trait, because that means you're thinking of everyone involved. You're very conscientious of other people's needs and what's going on around you. And that's something that should be fostered in your children, is to, let them think about what's best for everyone involved. And openness also. Without getting into this too much, there were situations in which I was taught to lie, or told that, it was no other people's business. So that if people pressed me, I would lie to cover what was nobody else's business. So that is a problem. That teaches you that if you're in a bind, you can lie, or if other people are in trouble, you can lie for them, And openness is what you need to teach children, because that includes truth-telling, that includes disclosure of yourself. And I've had people actually tell me I share too much, but to me, that's better than the way it used to be, where I wasn't sharing anything because I was told not to, and I felt like I was a fake person, because I was keeping these secrets. That's the title of the book series I wrote, The Secrets of the Closet Monsters, because I just was like, I'm going to let all this stuff out. These are these people's secrets. They're not my secrets, because this stuff was done to me. I didn't do this stuff. So, yeah, I'm letting all the secrets out. And new experiences. Give your child new experiences. Novel helps the brain grow, If they're doing the same old thing all the time, they're bored because they already know how to do this. Give them new experiences to broaden their horizons. And then again, this is all pretty much stable before adulthood. And usually most people say by the time you're between 8 and 10, your personality is pretty much set. And there can be tweaks. There can be learning later on. So, there's always hope if there's a problem, that you can unlearn some behaviors that you learned that were unfortunate. Which characteristics are most likely to endure? And again, no one knows for sure. But basically, like I said, if you're shy, you're probably always going to be a little shy. If you're outgoing, you're probably going to always be a little outgoing. We have the introverts, the extroverts, and that's something that kind of stays in the same vein unless there's a trauma that happens that causes a switch in that. Domains of development. Change and stability occur in various domains or dimensions of the self. And we have these divisions for the simple fact that you have to be a different person at school than you are at home. You have to be a different person at work than you are at home. You have to be a different person with your family than you are with your friends. And, hopefully that's not too big of a difference, or that's going to cause you some cognitive dissonance. But we do have different domains of our lives. Developmental scientists talk separately about physical development, and that's, the body and how you grow. Cognitive development, and that's how you're thinking, your mind grows. And psychosocial development, and that's how you interact and deal with other people. Actually, though, these domains are intertwined because we can't cut ourselves up into parts. We are all of the parts, and that's the problem I've had, in the past with cognitive dissonance, and had to go talk to people about this, because I was divided. I was expected to be this way at home, but then I could be this way, with friends and at school, and it was a hard way to live, because I was basically being, categorized and chopped into pieces. Throughout life, each affects the others, and each domain is important throughout life, because, all aspects of yourself, your spiritual development will help you, have a connection to God, which helps you throughout life. People with a connection to their higher power live happier, better, longer lives. Your mental health is going to help you in your life, and and how you deal with other people. Your emotional life is helping you to navigate emotions and to deal with other people in emotional situations. And of course, physically, you need to take care of yourself so you can live a long and healthy life. Growth of the body and brain, sensory capacities, motor skills, and health are part of physical development and may influence other domains of development. Because if you're not healthy, it is going to affect how you feel emotionally, how you are operating mentally, and whether you believe spiritually. For example, a child with frequent ear infections may develop language more slowly than a child without this problem because they cannot hear well. So their inability to hear well during these ear infections keeps them from reproducing the speech. Problems during puberty, dramatic physical and hormonal changes affect the developing sense of self. And, some kids are mean. Some girls develop breasts faster than others. Some develop pubic hair, and for the boys too, faster than others. Some grow faster. And other kids are mean. They're going to make fun of people for this stuff. So that can affect your self-esteem and affect your emotional and mental development. And in some older adults, physical changes in the brain may lead to intellectual and personality deterioration. As I talked about before, dementia, Alzheimer's, you basically become not even the same person. It's a shame. Change in stability and mental abilities such as learning, attention, memory, language, thinking, reasoning, and creativity constitute cognitive development. And that is your cognition, that you are aware of life, of yourself, and you're developing. And we all have mental abilities, whether they're not so good or they're pretty good. We're all able to think and, reason things out. Learning is something that is very important. We talked about that before, for children to learn, so that they're not ignorant and they can navigate the world better. And paying attention. I have a child that has severe ADD, so attention was a problem for him. So we did interventions through, the school to try and help him as best we could. But that's something you can teach also. And it is helpful, even if they have it, pay attention. What's going on here? Look. Like, I had to snatch him up out front one day. He was going to see our neighbor. He did not look both ways before he crossed the road. So Mama had to snatch him up, and say, no, no, no. Pay attention. You must look, and you can teach a child, if an adult is speaking, you listen, you pay attention, and basically you can slow them down. And that's hard with some kids, especially if they have ADD or ADHD, but it's important that you make that effort for their own good. Memory. That's something you can work on. I'm trying to learn, like I said, I've been working on learning Spanish for years now. A very small Spanish speaking ability. But I do this for brain training. I do this to keep my brain going because, like I said, I did have a gestational stroke when I was pregnant with my oldest child. It did affect my speech center. So, you might laugh at funny Ange because she speaks sometimes slowly or, lispy or runs things together. But that's just a fact of my reality. So, like my youngest son had some problems with speech. And so we had interventions in school for him. So, this is an important, thing if you want your child to learn language and thinking skills, reasoning skills. You can tell them to stop and think. Why do you think this is a good idea? Why do you think this is a bad? You teach them to think. Critical thinking is born of reasoning things out. And that's something that we need to do. And if we're not taught that, then we don't know that. Because you only know what you can know. You only know what you know. So if we're not taught to think and reason things out, it's never too late for that until it is. So, and creativity. Humans have the spark of God in us. God created us to be his special creatures. We like to create. I mean, sometimes you do see like elephants or chimps, but they're trained to create art. But humans like to create. We like to create things. And we get that from our Father God. So when we're being creative, we're happier. And this all constitutes your cognitive development. How you grow and learn. Cognitive advances are closely related to physical and emotional growth. So as you grow physically, you have to be a certain, age before you can think about certain things. And you have to be mentally more mature to think about certain things. Like I say, critical thinking comes later in life. The ability to speak depends on the physical development of the mouth and brain. A child who has, difficulty expressing himself in words may evoke negative reactions in others. Like I said, there are people who are on the spectrum who don't speak, and other people think, well, why aren't you talking to me? Why are you being a jerk? And that's not it. It's just that they're nonverbal, and that's who they are. And, you need to be accepting of that, because put yourself in their shoes. Would you want to be treated that way? No. Influencing their popularity and sense of self-worth. Of course, if a person's being picked on, they're not going to feel very good about themselves. Change and stability in emotions. And we all know we have change in emotions. Kids it's all about them. They're very egocentric. And you have to teach them it's not all about them. Sometimes it's about other people. And if we remember being a teen and being in our hormones, your attitude then was much different than it is now. And sometimes you look back and like, dear God. Personality, again, your personality will change. There will be stables in your personality, but your personality will change. I'm not the same person I was, when I was 5, thank goodness. And most of us aren't. There are a few instances where, like I said, people don't grow up, but for the most part, we do change. And social relationships together constitute psychosocial development. And this can affect cognitive and physical functioning, because how you relate, how you think about, other people in social settings is going to affect you. And this can create a popular, friendly person or a loner, depending on how your psychosocial development goes. For example, anxiety about taking a test can impair performance. And we know there are people who have test anxiety. I had a son who was one of them people. And me personally, didn't, I don't have that problem. I'll take a test, fine, I don't care. Social support can help people cope with the potentially negative effects of stress on physical and mental health. And some people just thrive on stress. They are just stress balls, and I can't stand it. And, that's not healthy for you. It is mentally, emotionally, and physically not healthy for you. So you need to learn how to de-stress and take those breaths. We talked about that in our wisdom earlier. And just de-stress, because all you're doing is upsetting yourself. You're going to have heart attacks, strokes, whatever. And of course, it's not going to be good for your mental health, because if you're thriving in stress all the time, then you're affecting your own mental health. As we report in later on, researchers even have identified possible links between personality and length of life. So the happier you are, in general, you live longer. The more stressful and anxiety-ridden you are, you're going to die sooner, because you're not being in good health in any way. Because people who are having a lot of depression and anxiety do tend to have unhealthy habits, which lead to, unfortunately, an earlier death. Conversely, physical and cognitive capacities contribute greatly to self-esteem and can affect social acceptance and choice of occupation. And that's what I taught my kids when we were going through their grades and things to pick out what school they wanted to go to. What are you best at? What are you good at? Because studies have shown that what comes easiest for you, what you're best at and what you're good at, you're going to continue in that vein. So if you're getting A's in this subject, that's probably where you should be aiming. You should be going that way, because that's what you're going to enjoy the most, because you're good at it. And that's what you're going to feel good about yourself the most doing, because you're good at it. Although we look separately at physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development, a person is more than a bundle of isolated parts. And, that's where we get into domains and things. But yeah, you're not just a bunch of parts put together. You're a whole person. And even though in science they study different parts and talk about the different parts, but all those parts interrelate and interconnect and make you a whole person. Development is a unified process. Again, all your parts come together to make a unified person. So you grow as a whole, not in parts. Throughout the text, yeah, sure you will. And they would talk about major domains of development. Periods of the lifespan. The concept of a division of the lifespan into periods is a social construction. And I think we've heard enough about that here lately, social constructions in a negative way. They've been throwing that out. But that's things that society has decided is a thing. It's a social construction. An idea about the nature of reality that is widely accepted by members of a society at a particular time. Again, it can change in different times. Like, back in the day, your Victorian women with their bloomers down to their ankles. We don't do that anymore. On the basis of shared subjective perceptions or assumptions. Because things can appear a certain way to us at one point in time, and then years down the road, we look back, oh God, like 80s hair. Remember our hair? Poof, up here, frizzed, permy, and now we're like, why? What did we do to our poor hair? But, at certain times, things are considered to be cool or in, or this is the way it should be. And that happens with science, medicine, social, worlds, and, these things change over time. And assumptions, that's a word too that they threw in there that are like assumptions. People assume things are a certain way, But later on we learn that that's not true. In reality, days flow into years without any demarcation except one that people impose. Because we grow as a collective. Not only is an individual's knowledge that, important for them, but their individual knowledge can contribute to the knowledge of society as a whole. So, if you think you're just wasting your time teaching your kids or telling people things, you're not, because that knowledge can contribute to society as a whole. There is no objectively definable moment when a child becomes an adult. And again, we talked about, that the other day about, it used to be when a girl started Menzies, she usually around the age of 12 to 14, she was considered a woman and married off. But she wasn't physically or mentally mature yet. So that was not a good time in society. Or a young person becomes old. And people can define that, however they want, And I've found that the older you get, the older old gets. When I was a kid, 30, oh, they're old. They must be like 30. And then you get to be 30, and then, old is more like 60. And then you get 50. Well, old is more like 80. Old gets older the older you get. Oh, here we go. This thing, though. This thing is telling me things. Now, give me a second here. I gotta do a thing. Alright, I'm back. I forgot to plug it in on these long things. It needs to be plugged in. It's an old laptop with an old battery in it. So, there we are. The concept of childhood can be viewed as a social construction. Because people have decided certain things about childhood. Kids are this way, kids are that way. And that is based on contemporary knowledge. Because at one point, kids were just little adults. You were just a miniature of your parents. You're expected to have adult responsibilities, think like an adult, behave like an adult. And that's not reality. That's not the facts. Children have to grow and learn and develop. They're not little miniature adults. Some controversial evidence suggests that children in earlier times were regarded and treated much like small adults. No, I didn't read ahead. Even now, in many developing countries, children labor alongside their elders, doing the same kind of work for equally long hours. And like I said, thankfully here in America that ended. We ended the child labor laws so that our children don't have to work in mines or sweatshops, like the adults do, because then they don't get to have a childhood and they don't learn and grow and develop. In industrial societies, we have mentioned the concept of adolescence as a period of development is quite recent, because they didn't consider, there was a difference between being a kid and adult. You just suddenly became a man or woman one day when you sexually matured. They didn't think about adolescence, where your hormones are coming in and you're filling out and your brain is kind of in a place where all it's looking to do is pair up. That's the goal. In some pre-industrial societies, such as the Chippewa Indians, it does not exist. A child at puberty becomes what we would call an adult and remains so until becoming a grandparent. So, they just skip the whole, there's no such thing as adolescence. Like I said, in some societies, that's just the way it rolled. Similarly, as we report in later on, there are other societies, such as the Gusii of Kenya, that have no concept of middle age. You're just a young adult, then you're an old adult. Middle age is just not something they consider. In this book, here we go. We'll follow a sequence of 8 periods generally accepted in Western industrial societies. And like I said, I don't read everything that's in here, so, take what you get. After describing the crucial changes that occur in the first period before birth, we trace all 3 domains of development through infancy and toddlerhood, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. And those are all your stages of development. Like I said, you start as a baby, you become a toddler, you become a young child, you become an older child, you become a preteen, you become a teen, you become a young adult, you become a middle-aged adult, then an older adult. So now we realize there are definite periods of time and definite developmental things that should be happening during these periods of time. After infancy and toddlerhood, we combine physical and cognitive development into a single talk, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it to where you're going to learn more by skipping a lot of their, things because this this class, the persons who was teaching it also wrote the book, so they tooted their horns quite a bit, which is fine. They got PhDs, that's fine. But I'm more concerned with the content, than the specifics about the book. So, again, there are lots of periods in your lifespan and domains of development throughout your life. And you will go through developmental processes where you change and then stabilize and then change again and then stabilize. And that is all perfectly normal and contributes to why you do what you do. Until next time.